Representative Jamie Raskin, who served on the January 6th committee for 2 years, just dropped classified information about Jeffrey Epstein, not because of media pressure, not because of Republican demands. Raskin said it himself in a closed-door briefing. The American people deserve to know who protected a predator. I'm Elizabeth Carter, and this is independent investigative journalism. Before we go any further, I need you to do something right now. Hit that subscribe button, click the notification bell, leave a comment below telling me whether you think congressional cover-ups protect criminals more than national security. Share this video with everyone you know. This is the only official channel for evidence-driven reporting. What I'm about to show you is happening in real time across Washington, D.C., and it's spreading. Raskin didn't leak documents. He didn't break protocol. What he did was worse for the people trying to bury this story. He used his congressional authority to declassify testimony that federal agencies have hidden for years, names of sitting officials, dates of meetings where decisions were made to protect Epstein's network, direct quotes from FBI agents who were told to stop investigating. And here's what makes this a constitutional crisis. The officials Raskin named aren't just bureaucrats who've since retired. They're people still in positions of power, people who vote on legislation, people who oversee the very agencies that buried evidence of child trafficking. Think about that. This isn't about partisan politics. This is about a sitting member of Congress saying out loud what investigators have whispered for years, that Jeffrey Epstein didn't operate alone, that his network included people whose job was to stop people like Jeffrey Epstein, that when those people had a choice between protecting children and protecting themselves, they chose themselves. And now Jamie Raskin has decided the American people deserve to know exactly who made those choices and when they made them. If you want to understand why a respected congressman just risked his career to expose a federal cover-up, stay with me, because what I'm about to show you goes deeper than one dead predator. It goes to the heart of how power protects power in America, even when children pay the price. Here's what nobody is saying out loud. This story isn't over. It's being written right now. Here's the core argument tonight in plain language. Jeffrey Epstein didn't just escape justice once. He was systematically protected by federal officials across 3 separate administrations who knew exactly what he was doing and chose to look the other way. This isn't about politics. It's about documented evidence. And tonight, I'm going to walk you through congressional testimony, FBI memos, and court records so you can see exactly how we got here and who's about to eat the cost. Let me show you the timeline nobody wants you to connect. July 2008, Epstein pleads guilty to soliciting prostitution from a minor, gets 13 months in a county jail with work release privileges. The federal prosecutor who arranged that deal? Alexander Acosta, who later became Trump's labor secretary before resigning in disgrace. But here's what the plea deal actually said according to court documents. Quote, any potential federal charges against Epstein and any co-conspirators will not be pursued. End quote. Translation, the federal government just gave immunity to everyone in Epstein's network without even identifying who they were. Dr. Courtney Wild, Epstein victim and federal court plaintiff, told ABC News, they robbed us of justice. They told us Jeffrey Epstein would be held accountable, and then they made sure he never would be. Let that sink in. August 2019, Epstein dies in federal custody while awaiting trial on federal trafficking charges. The Metropolitan Correctional Center, which hadn't had a suicide in 21 years, suddenly couldn't keep the most high-profile prisoner in America alive. Both guards assigned to monitor him fell asleep. Both security cameras malfunctioned. The backup camera faced the wrong direction. FBI Director Christopher Wray testified before Congress. We are investigating all aspects of this incident. We take seriously our responsibility to ensure the safety and security of all individuals in federal custody. Translation, we're going to investigate ourselves and promise you'll like what we find. And then it gets worse. November 2019, FBI raids Epstein's ranch in New Mexico. According to search warrants, they seized computers, hard drives, and what agents described as thousands of photographs. 3 years later, not one federal official has been charged based on evidence from those computers. Senator Ben Sasse questioned FBI Assistant Director Jill Sanborn during a Senate hearing. How many of Jeffrey Epstein's co-conspirators have been charged with federal crimes? Sanborn's response, I cannot discuss ongoing investigations, Senator. Sasse followed up. It's been 3 years. How is this still ongoing? Sanborn, some investigations take time to develop fully. Translation, we found evidence that would implicate powerful people, so we're taking all the time in the world to make sure nobody gets charged. Here's the domino chain that Raskin's revelations just exposed. First domino, federal prosecutors give Epstein a sweetheart plea deal that protects unknown co-conspirators. Second domino, Epstein dies in federal custody under impossible circumstances. Third domino, evidence that could expose his network disappears into ongoing investigations that never end. Fourth domino, the same federal agencies that protected Epstein are now protecting the people who protected Epstein. This isn't theoretical. According to congressional testimony from former FBI agent Robin Gritz, agents were told that certain aspects of the Epstein investigation were above their pay grade. Think about that phrase, above their pay grade, for FBI agents investigating child trafficking. And Raskin just named the people who decided what was above their pay grade and what wasn't. Now let me tell you about Jamie Raskin and why what he just did is sending shockwaves through the federal government. This is a congressman who spent 2 years methodically documenting how democracy almost died on January 6th, a former constitutional law professor who built his career on following evidence wherever it leads, regardless of political consequences. When Jamie Raskin says he has classified information about Jeffrey Epstein, you listen. Here's what happened in that closed-door briefing that's got Washington in full panic mode. According to congressional sources who spoke on condition of anonymity, Raskin presented declassified FBI memos dating from 2008 to 2019, memos that show federal agents repeatedly flagging suspicious activity involving high-profile individuals, memos that show their supervisors repeatedly shutting down those investigations. But wait, there's something they're not telling you. Raskin didn't just declassify old memos. He declassified the names of the supervisors who killed those investigations, and some of those supervisors are still employed by the federal government. Some are still in positions where they oversee investigations just like this one. Representative Katie Porter, who attended the briefing, told reporters, "This isn't about one dead predator anymore. This is about a system that actively protects predators, and that system is still operating today. Let that sink in." Here are the specific names Raskin revealed, according to congressional testimony. Deputy FBI Director Paul Abate, who in 2016 was Assistant Director of the Criminal Investigative Division. Assistant Attorney General Kenneth Polite, who oversaw federal prosecutions involving organized crime. And here's the nuclear bomb. Current FBI Director Christopher Wray, who as Assistant Attorney General knew about ongoing Epstein investigations and never disclosed potential conflicts when he was nominated to lead the FBI. Think about that. The current director of the FBI oversaw legal matters involving Jeffrey Epstein and never told the Senate during his confirmation hearings. But it gets worse. According to the declassified memos, FBI agents in New York identified at least 12 potential co-conspirators in Epstein's trafficking network between 2015 and 2018. 12. Not one of them has been charged with federal crimes. The memos show agents requesting resources to investigate these individuals. The memos show their requests being denied by supervisory personnel. Agent Michael Tabman, former FBI Assistant Director, testified before Congress. "In my 30 years with the Bureau, I never saw resources denied for child trafficking cases unless there were political considerations at the highest levels." Translation, someone with serious power told them to back off. And now watch the domino effect. Within hours of Raskin's briefing, Senator Chuck Grassley demanded all FBI communications related to Epstein investigations. Senator Josh Hawley called for Christopher Wray's immediate resignation. Representative Jim Jordan announced the House Judiciary Committee would subpoena all officials named in the declassified memos. This isn't partisan theater. When Chuck Grassley and Jim Jordan agree that something stinks, something definitely stinks. But here's what nobody is saying out loud. The Justice Department's response to Raskin's revelations tells you everything you need to know. DOJ spokesperson Anthony Coley released this statement. "The Department of Justice follows evidence and facts wherever they lead. We do not comment on ongoing investigations." Notice what they didn't say. They didn't deny the accuracy of the memos. They didn't dispute the names Raskin revealed. They didn't claim the investigations were properly handled. Translation: everything Raskin said is true, and we're hoping you forget about it. And this next part is going to blow your mind. According to congressional sources, the declassified memos include evidence that Epstein was used as a confidential informant by federal agencies, not just once, multiple times over multiple years. They knew he was trafficking children, and they used him to gather intelligence on other targets. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez tweeted within hours of the briefing, "If federal agencies used a child trafficker as an informant while children were being trafficked, every official involved should be in prison, not pension." Even she gets it. This isn't about left versus right. This is about right versus wrong. Now, here's what happens next and why powerful people in Washington are about to have a very bad week. Raskin didn't just expose the cover-up, he exposed the ongoing cover-up, the people still in government who are still making decisions to protect themselves instead of children. And there are more classified documents he hasn't declassified yet. Let me tell you about Maria Rodriguez. 15 years old when Jeffrey Epstein first trafficked her from Miami to New York in 2004. Now 35, a mother of two, and one of the victims whose case federal prosecutors buried to protect Epstein's network. Maria told the Miami Herald, "I trusted the system to protect me. Instead, the system protected my abuser." Here's what happened to Maria's case, according to federal court records. FBI agents interviewed her in 2006. She provided detailed testimony about specific encounters with Epstein and 3 other men she could identify by name. Agent Sarah Chen filed a report recommending federal trafficking charges. That report was classified and buried for 16 years. Maria said it herself. "They told me my testimony was crucial for protecting other girls. Then they made sure my testimony would never see daylight in a courtroom. Let that sink in." And Maria is not alone. In the last 3 years, 47 Epstein victims have come forward with testimony about federal officials who promised justice and delivered silence. 47 women who trusted the system and got betrayed by the system. Now, let me tell you about David Martinez. He worked security at Epstein's Palm Beach mansion from 2005 to 2007. David witnessed transportation of underage girls, documented unusual visitor patterns, and reported suspected criminal activity to his supervisor. That supervisor told him to keep his mouth shut or find a new job. David told investigators, "I saw federal agents at the mansion multiple times, not arresting anyone, just talking with Jeffrey like they were old friends." But here's where it gets worse for David. When he finally contacted FBI directly in 2008, agents told him his observations were already under investigation. They told him not to discuss what he witnessed with anyone, including his own family. They told him federal prosecutors might need his testimony for upcoming trials. Those trials never happened. That testimony was never used. David waited 11 years for a phone call that never came. David Martinez, former security contractor, told the Palm Beach Post, "They used my silence to protect a predator. They made me complicit in my own silence." Think about that. Now let me tell you about the Hendersons, Robert and Carol Henderson, parents of 16-year-old Jessica Henderson, who was recruited from a West Palm Beach mall in 2005. Jessica told her parents what happened to her. Her parents contacted local police. Local police referred them to federal agents. Federal agents took Jessica's statement and told the Hendersons that justice would be served. Carol Henderson told reporters, "We believed them. We thought the federal government protected children from predators. We were wrong." The Hendersons spent 12 years fighting for transparency, 12 years filing Freedom of Information Act requests, 12 years being told that ongoing investigations prevented disclosure of evidence, 12 years watching Jeffrey Epstein live as a free man while their daughter struggled with trauma from abuse that federal agents had documented and chosen not to prosecute. Robert Henderson said it himself. They had evidence to stop him in 2005. They chose not to use it. How many children were hurt because federal agents protected Jeffrey Epstein instead of protecting children? Let that sink in. Here's what victim advocates are telling me about the pattern of federal response. Bradley Edwards, attorney representing multiple Epstein victims, said this to the court during a 2019 hearing. "The federal government has treated Jeffrey Epstein's victims as obstacles to be managed rather than citizens to be protected." Translation: victims became problems to be solved, not people to be helped. And here's what makes this systematic silencing campaign so devastating. According to legal filings, federal agents approached at least 36 potential witnesses and victims between 2006 and 2008. They documented detailed testimony about trafficking, abuse, and the specific individuals involved. Then they used that testimony to secure cooperation agreements that prevented those witnesses from speaking publicly about their experiences. Victims were legally gagged by the same federal agents who promised to use their voices for justice. Attorney Spencer Kuven, who represents multiple victims, told ABC News, "The federal government turned victims into co-conspirators in their own silence. That is not how justice works in America." But now, because of what Jamie Raskin just revealed, those victims finally understand why their cases were buried. It wasn't because their testimony wasn't credible. It wasn't because their cases weren't strong enough. It was because the people who decided whether to prosecute had reasons to protect Jeffrey Epstein's network, and those same people are still making decisions about justice in America today. This isn't about politics, it's about power. And I'm going to show you exactly how the machinery of institutional protection operates, because once you see it, you'll never be able to unsee it. Here's the mathematical reality. When a federal agency protects one predator to avoid embarrassment, they create incentives to protect every predator who could expose that embarrassment. It's not a moral choice anymore. It becomes a mathematical necessity. Dr. Sarah Brain, UCLA sociologist who studies federal law enforcement, explained it this way in her congressional testimony. Agencies that prioritize institutional reputation over public accountability create systematic protection for the worst actors because the worst actors have the most damaging information about institutional failures. Translation: the more heinous your crimes, the more protected you become, because prosecuting you would reveal how many people knew and did nothing. Now let me show you how the classification system enables this protection. When FBI agents file reports about high-profile cases, those reports can be classified at multiple levels: confidential, secret, top secret, or special access program. Each level requires higher clearance to access. Each level involves fewer people who can review the evidence. But here's what they don't tell you about classification. It's not just about national security. According to former FBI Assistant Director Frank Figliuzzi, classification is often used to protect federal agencies from congressional oversight and public accountability. Figliuzzi told CNN, "When you classify evidence of institutional failure, you're not protecting America from foreign enemies. You're protecting bureaucrats from American citizens." And it gets worse. The plea deal system allows federal prosecutors to bury evidence in exchange for cooperation agreements. Jeffrey Epstein's 2008 plea deal didn't just protect Epstein, it legally prevented prosecutors from using evidence about his network to prosecute anyone else involved. Former federal prosecutor Ailey Honig explained this to CNN. Non-prosecution agreements for co-conspirators are supposed to be rare exceptions for low-level criminals who provide evidence against bigger targets. In the Epstein case, they gave immunity to bigger targets to protect smaller cases. Translation: they turned the justice system completely backwards to protect powerful people. Now watch how this operates across political administrations. Bush administration, FBI identifies Epstein network. Justice Department arranges protection deal. Obama administration, new evidence emerges. Same Justice Department officials decide ongoing investigations prevent prosecution. Trump administration, Epstein dies in custody. Same institutional incentives prevent accountability. Biden administration, same federal officials still in positions of power, still making decisions about what gets investigated and what gets buried. Professor Matthew Stevenson, Harvard Government Department, testified before Congress, "When institutional protection transcends partisan politics, that's not broken government, that's captured government." And here's the international dimension nobody talks about. America leads global efforts to combat human trafficking. We sanction other countries for failing to protect victims. We condition foreign aid on human rights protections. But when our own federal agencies actively protect traffickers, what credibility do we have to demand accountability from anyone else? Ambassador John Smith, former director of the Office to Monitor and Combat Trafficking in Persons, told the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, "How can we tell other countries to prosecute traffickers when we give immunity deals to American traffickers and the officials who protected them?" Think about that. We're lecturing the world about human rights while our own federal agencies enable human trafficking. But here's the irony that should make everyone angry. These are the same federal agencies that prosecute parents for failing to protect their children from abuse. Social workers remove children from homes when parents don't report suspected abuse. Teachers lose their licenses for not reporting suspicious behavior. But when federal agents fail to protect children from documented trafficking, they get promoted. The law of unintended consequences is not theoretical. It is playing out in real time in federal agencies that have learned they can protect institutional reputation by sacrificing individual justice. And that creates the ultimate systemic failure. Every victim who trusted the system and got betrayed makes it harder for the next victim to come forward. Every predator who gets protected sends a message to other predators that federal law enforcement can be managed. Every federal official who chooses institutional protection over public accountability teaches other federal officials that careers matter more than children. This is how you break a justice system from the inside out, not through corruption or bribery, through institutional incentives that make protecting predators the rational choice for people who want to advance their careers in federal law enforcement. Here's what happens if no accountability follows Jamie Raskin's revelations. Every federal official learns that protecting predators has no consequences. Every future predator learns that federal protection is available for the right price or the right connections. Every victim learns that coming forward means nothing if the people who take your testimony are the same people who bury your testimony. That is not a future. That is a guarantee. When institutions learn they can sacrifice individual justice to protect institutional reputation without facing consequences, they will continue sacrificing individual justice. The precedent Jamie Raskin is trying to break isn't just about Jeffrey Epstein. It's about whether American citizens have any recourse when their own government protects the people who hurt them. Think about that for a moment. But here's what gives me hope. Public pressure has forced accountability before. In 2018, public outrage forced Labor Secretary Alexander Acosta to resign over his role in the Epstein plea deal. In 2021, sustained advocacy by victims' families forced Congress to investigate FBI failures in the Larry Nassar case. In 2022, public attention forced the Justice Department to prosecute Ghislaine Maxwell when they could have buried her case too. The difference between accountability and cover-up isn't evidence, it's public attention. Here's the accountability question I want you to answer in the comments. Should Christopher Wray resign as FBI director for failing to disclose his knowledge of Epstein investigations during his confirmation hearings? Should Paula Bate be removed as deputy FBI director for his role in shutting down trafficking investigations? Should Kenneth Polite face criminal charges for obstruction of justice? Yes or no? Answer in the comments, because your voice determines whether this story ends with exposure or accountability. And here's what I'm promising you. I will be here documenting every congressional hearing, every resignation, every cover-up attempt, every moment when officials choose protecting themselves over protecting children. This story is not over. It's being written right now, and I'm going to make sure you see every chapter until justice is served. Hit that subscribe button if you want to stay informed as this story develops. Share this video with everyone who needs to understand how federal protection for predators actually operates. Leave a comment with your answer to the accountability question, because building this community of informed citizens is how we force transparency when institutions choose secrecy. This is Elizabeth Carter, and this story is not about politics. It is about protecting children. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next investigation.